What is up, you guys, and welcome back to the 98 English course. In today's recording, we're going to be going over Unit 4, Science and Nature. Okay, so as always, we start with the key vocabulary and then we move on to the listening. Here we go. Effect, altitude, autumn, bare, beautiful, boring, climate, cloudy, cold, dangerous, difficult, dog, dry, effect, fast, foggy, fur, high, hot, humid, leg, lightning, lips, low, mild, modern, neck, nose, paw, protected, rain, region, season, skin, spring, storm, summer, sunny, temperature, tropical, valley, warm, weight, wet, winter. Okay, you guys? Now let's move on to listening. So what do we have here? It looks like we're going to be talking about climate and the weather and different seasons of the year. Okay, so here we can see we have a pretty nice photograph actually. And we have fallen leaves, right? Here we have the beautiful sea, obviously, and some mountains in the back. Here we can see some flowers, and here it looks like it's freezing cold. Okay, so here we have exercise A. Listen. Which photographs can you see in, or can you see each item in? Let me actually open this for you guys. Okay, so how is this gonna go? The audio will give us items. So for example, trees, leaves, the sea, sky, clouds, okay? And we're gonna have to mention how many of these items, or in how many pictures can we see said items, okay? So here we go, have a listen.
42. Unit 4, Science and Nature. Lesson 1, Listening. Exercise A. Listen. Which photographs can you see each item in?
Trees,
Okay, so number 1 is trees. Where can we see trees, you guys? We can obviously see trees in number 1, number 2 as well, number 3 in the background, and finally number 4. Okay, so trees will be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay?
leaves,
Leaves. Okay, so we can clearly see leaves in number 1. Okay, number 2 as well. We can see the leaves here. And let's check number 3. You guys can see the trees in the background and the leaves as well. However, number 4 has trees, but all these trees don't have any leaves because it's like freezing below degree. It's minus something degrees out there, so no leaves, okay? So for leaves, we'll have 1, 2, and 3, right? Let's keep going.
flowers,
Flowers. Where can we see flowers? Not in number 1. I don't see any flowers. Not in number 2. A ton of flowers in number 3. And no flowers at all in number 4. So number 3 only.
the sea,
And the sea, we can obviously tell that the sea is only in number 2. Okay? So number 2 will have the sea.
sand,
Sand. Again, I don't see any sand in number 1, 3, or 4. So only number 2, this beach here.
the sky,
The sky. Can't really seem to see the sky on number 1. We can clearly see the sky in number 2 and number 3 and number 4. Okay? So we can see the sky here a little bit. We can see the full sky in number 4 and number 2 as well. So the sky will be 2, 3, and 4.
Clouds.
Clouds. Where can we see clouds? So I can't see clouds, or basically the sky, and number 1. So we can see the clouds in number 2. Here it is. Can't really see clouds on number 3. And I'm guessing these are also clouds a little bit. So number 2 and 4 are clouds.
Snow.
Snow. We can obviously see the snow only in number 4. As you can see, it's freezing.
Rocks.
Rocks. I don't remember seeing any rocks, so no rocks here at all, right? Only trees and a road. And here, no rocks at all, only mountains. Okay, so no rocks, so no rocks at all. Okay.
People.
People. Okay, we can only see people in photograph number 3. Alright, so that's it. Now let's move on. What do we have here? Exercise B. Listen to 4 descriptions by students. Let me actually open this up for you guys. Okay. Which photograph is the speaker describing? Okay, so in this audio, we're going to have 4 different speakers for every photograph. Obviously, it's going to be scrambled. And we're going to have to number which speaker is talking about which photograph, okay? And then after that, we're going to write the name for the season under each picture. So for example, what is the season here? What is the season here in all of them? But for now, let's focus on the speakers and which one is talking about which photograph, okay? Here we go. Take a listen.
43. Exercise B. Listen to 4 descriptions by students.
This photograph is from Russia. Russia is in Europe and Asia. The photograph shows the city of St. Petersburg in winter. There's a lot of snow and the temperature is below freezing. In Europe, winter is December to February, but it can be much longer in St. Petersburg.
Okay, so first speaker is obviously talking about Russia here because she's talking about how freezing it was and how it was like minus 2 Celsius or things like that. So basically freezing. So number 1 will be photograph number 4. Okay, here we go.
This photo's from Barbados in the West Indies. As you can see, it's a beautiful day in summer. It's hot, and the sea is calm. There are only a few clouds in the sky.
This photograph.
Okay, so let me pause that before we move on. So here we have number 2, you guys. We can see the clouds, we can see the sea, and we can see that it looks hot and basically a good summer day. So obviously that will be speaker number 2. So speaker number 2 for photograph number 2. Let's keep going.
Photograph was taken in Holland. Holland is a small country in Europe. It's famous for its flowers. In the photograph, it's spring, and we can see thousands of tulips, red and yellow. In the Northern Hemisphere, spring starts in March and ends in May.
This is a
Okay, before we move on, here we can see the flowers like she was talking about, and that looks like, you know, the spring season right here. This is in Holland, so speaker number 3 will be with photograph number 3 as well.
photograph of Vermont. Vermont is in the east of the United States. People say it's the most beautiful place in the world in autumn. This photograph shows the lovely autumn colours in a forest. In Canada and the USA, people say fall and not autumn.
Okay, so obviously he's talking about number 1. You guys can see fall, or as he said, autumn as well. This is the 4th and final season, okay, of the year. So number 4, and this is the photograph. So speaker number 4 will be with number 1. Okay, you guys? Pretty simple stuff. Now let's move on to 2. write the name for the season under each picture. So obviously, number one, you guys know a side effect when it's fall or autumn, the season, is that leaves tend to turn brown and fall off trees, right? And weather-wise, it's usually dry and windy, okay? So that is autumn. So we'll write it like so, autumn, okay? And obviously there's a silent N in the end, you guys, okay? Then we have number two. What is this, you guys? You guys should be able to know this. This is obviously summer. Summer is usually hot, very hot, depending on where you live, okay? And it's usually a lot of people's favorites because it's favorite season because some people really do, or not some people, a lot of people enjoy going out to the sea and to the beach and having fun and finally going outside, and, okay, things of that nature. Now let's move on to number three, and this I think is the most ideal season for most people as well. Like, summer's fun and all, but sometimes, you know, people don't want to spend their whole lives in summer, so this is the season that people, you know, kind of focus on what they want to do in, right? So we have, this is called spring, you guys, right? And spring is kind of a mix between slight wind and not too hot, not too cold kind of weather, if you know, if that makes sense. It's basically ideal, you know, so you don't feel the need, like, you don't feel like you're gonna die because of how hot it is outside, like in summer, or it's not too windy or dry that you feel like you don't really want to go outside, like in autumn, okay? And finally, let's go to number four, and our final season, we have winter, you guys. In winter, everybody knows what winter is. It is the hands down coldest season, right? It might not necessarily be windy, but it can be really cold depending on where you live. And this is where a lot of people don't really like to go outside very much, myself included. Obviously, depending on where you live, sometimes winter is just, you know, slight cold, while in other places winter can be devastating, as seen in the picture here. Like, I'm talking snow, you know, -2 degrees outside, and just basically you don't want to be outside. So yeah, we have winter, summer, spring, and autumn. Okay, now let's move on. What do we have here? Here we have listen to a short talk about seasons. Okay, so we're going to be listening to a short talk about seasons, and we're going to complete the table and guess the spelling of each place name. Okay, so let's have a listen here. Okay, so he's going to be telling us the place, the number of seasons, and other information related. Here, have a listen.
44. Exercise C. Listen to a short talk about seasons. Complete the table. Guess the spelling of each place name.
OK, so most parts of the world have 4 seasons. For example, Islamabad, which is the capital of Pakistan, has a cold season, a hot season, a wet season, and lastly, a cool season. The cold season is from December to the end of March. And the hot season is from the beginning of April to June. Yes, June. Now, the wet season is from July to September. And so finally, the cool season starts in October and ends in November. So that was Pakistan. However, some parts of the world only have 2 seasons.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right here. I might actually rewind a little bit when we continue again. So firstly, she was talking about Pakistan and how Islamabad, by the way, the capital of Pakistan, has 4 seasons. So number of seasons for place is Islamabad, Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan. Let me write that. And other information, she said that from December to the end of March is the cold season, right? And from April to June is the hot season. And after that, from July to September is quote-unquote the wet season, right? And finally, from October to November is the cool season, and then the cycle goes on and on again. Okay? Now let's rewind and continue.
However, some parts of the world only have 2 seasons. For example, Baga, which is in the north of Nigeria, in Africa, has a dry season and a wet season. The dry season is from October to April, and the wet season is from May to September. Baga is in the northern hemisphere, but some places in the southern hemisphere also have.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause it right here. So, talking about Baga in Nigeria, it's in northern Nigeria, okay? And it has 2 seasons, right? Like she said. So, it has 2 seasons, okay? And from October to April, we have a season called the dry season, right? Okay? So, what dry means is basically, when the weather is really hot in the morning, but really cold at night. So, it can really confuse our bodies biologically, okay? That's the dry season. And from March to September, we have the wet season, right? So, that's it. Now, let's move on.
2 seasons. For example, Nazca in Peru, which is in South America, has a summer season and a winter season. The summer season is from December to March because Peru is in the southern hemisphere, and the winter season is from April to November. Now let's look at the seasons in.
Okay, now that that is over, she talked a little bit about Nazca, Peru, and how it's in South America, right? And it has also 2 seasons, right? So only 2 seasons. We have summer from December to March, summer, and from April to November we have winter, okay? So this was the table. Now let's move on. What else do we have? Okay, you guys, take a quick look at this map right here. We're going to be talking about it a little bit more, but for now, take a quick look. It's basically a world map with different lines, right? And different places for different climate changes, right? So obviously you can tell that things very far away are probably the coldest, and how things that are red are probably the hottest, or things that are, it's extreme summers basically, and things, that are yellow or orange can be, a little bit more tolerable, okay? Now let's go and look at exercise D. Look at the place names in the box, okay? Let me actually open this here. Okay, exercise D. We have, look at the place names in the box. Is each place a continent, a country, a region? Okay, so you guys know continents and countries. So continents are big areas that can have multiple countries, right? And then we have countries that can have obviously multiple cities, and regions is kind of similar to a continent but much smaller, right? And can have also, some countries in it max, okay? So nowhere near as big as a continent, right? And a continent doesn't necessarily need to have multiple countries. It can be its own country, okay? But it can be just a big land or space. So we have Africa. What is Africa, you guys? Obviously, Africa is a continent, right? Continent. Africa is really big, right? And there are a lot of places in Africa. And then we have Antarctica. Antarctica is also a continent, believe it or not. However, it's really cold. Like, it's far away, but it's really cold. And then we have Asia. Asia is also a continent, right? A little bit farther away from obviously North America and such, but also a continent. Australia is obviously a big country, okay? So it's a country, but it's a really big country. So country. And then we have China. China is also a country, you guys, with actually, I think, the biggest population in the world. So China is a country, Australia is a country. Then we have Europe. What is Europe, you guys? Europe is a continent, okay? So continent. Europe is a continent. And then we have the Middle East, where we're from. So the Middle East is actually a region, right? So a Middle East is a region, right? And then we have Greenland. What is Greenland exactly? It's also a region, believe it or not, okay? So the Middle East is a region, and Greenland is a region as well. And then we have India. What is India, you guys? India is a country, right? Country. India is a country. And then we have North America. North America is a continent, okay? Continent. Okay? And then we have Oceania. Oceania is actually a continent as well. So continent, right? And then we have Russia. Russia, although also a big country, is also a country. Okay? So it's not a continent, it's a country. And then we have South America. South America is obviously a continent. Continent. And finally we have the United States of America, and that is a country. Okay? Country. Okay? Pretty simple stuff. Now let's move on. Okay. Find all the places on the map. Okay, so this is gonna turn into geography here. So here we have we're gonna take it step by step. So starting from this side right here, we have, this is obviously North America. Then right under it we have the United States of America, and down here we have South America. Okay, and if you actually look here now, moving a little bit further, we have Europe. So this is Europe right here. And then we have Africa down here. And here we have the Middle East. Okay, you guys should be able to see that. Here we have the Middle East. And here we have Russia. Okay, so this is Russia right here. And here we have Asia. Okay, this is Asia. And what else do we have? We have China. Oh yeah, we have China here. And Oceania down here. And all the way down here we have this big chunk part right here is Australia. Okay, and now this little bit over here is India. Okay, it's actually a lot bigger, but you guys get the idea. This is India. Okay, I think that was all of them. Now, oh, actually Greenland, we forgot about Greenland. Where is Greenland? Greenland is right here. I told you guys it was far away. So Greenland. Okay, now let's move on. What do we have? Here we have exercise E. Listen to the introduction to a lecture about climate, and then we have these phrases in a box to make a definition of a climate. Okay, give me a second here. Let it open up. Okay, here we're gonna have a listen to an introduction of a lecture about climate. Okay, so the main focus will be about climate. And then we're going to be reordering this phrase, or these phrases right here, to make up the definition of what climate means. Okay? Let's have a listen.
45. Exercise E. Listen to the introduction to a lecture about climate.
Now, today, we're going to talk about climate around the world. So, world climate. Firstly, I'll give you a definition of climate. Then I'm going to look at the main types of climate. Okay, so first, what is climate? We all know the word weather. Rain and wind and sun. Is climate the same as weather? No, it isn't. Weather is part of climate, but they are not the same. Climate is connected with a particular region. It is the normal weather in a particular region. But it is more than that. Most regions in the world have seasons. 2, 3, or 4 different times of the year. So we must look at the normal weather in each season: summer, winter, spring and autumn. And not just one year. We need data from many years. we must look for patterns over many years.
Okay, so based on what we just heard in the audio, the definition of climate will be, we'll probably say it is the normal pattern, right? So, oh, right here. I don't know why it's not working. Okay, it is the normal pattern of weather, obviously because he made a differentiation between weather and climate and how they are not the same. Weather is part of the climate, right? So it is the normal pattern of weather in a region over a long period of time, right? So in order to have accurate measurements of climate, just to let you guys know, you're probably never 100% accurate when it comes to climate, okay? But we as humans, try our best to be as accurate as we can be, right? So it is the normal pattern of weather, the consistency of weather in a particular region over a long period of time, obviously doing research and such, okay? So basically, what's key here is the word consistency, okay? The consistency of a weather or the changes to a weather in a region over a long period of time. So the definition of climate, again, one more time, it is the normal pattern of weather in a region over a long period of time. Okay, you guys? Simple stuff. Let's move on. Okay? What do we have here? Here we have exercise F. Listen to the main part of the lecture. Okay, so now we're going to be listening to the main part of the lecture. Look at the key above. All right, let me actually open this here. Okay. So we're going to be listening to this, you guys, right? And complete the information about each climate type. And actually, let me close this for a second. I'll get right back into it. You guys see these different colors. These are obviously colors, like I said, indicating, if it's cold, hot, sustainable, a little bit extra cold, a little bit hot, you know what I mean? So we're going to be going over that in a second. Let's have a listen to exercise F first.
46. Exercise F. Listen to the main part of the lecture. Look at the key above.
Right. That's our definition. Now let's look at the main climate types. As I said, there are 6 main types. Let's start with the climate at the poles. It's called the polar type. The area around the North Pole has a polar climate. That's northern Canada, Greenland, and the northern part of Europe and Russia. As you probably know already, the polar climate is very cold and very dry. Second, we have the continental climate. It is very common. Now, the continental climate is warmer than the polar climate, but it is still cold. And it is also humid. A humid climate has a lot of water in the atmosphere. The air is wet. So that's the polar climate and the continental climate. Next, we have the mild climate. Mild means not hot and not cold. The eastern states of the US have a mild climate. A lot of Europe has a mild climate, and a few parts of southern Africa and southern and eastern Australia. China also has a mild climate. The fourth climate type is called dry. Dry, in this case, means no rain or not very much rain. We can find this climate in all the continents. It is in the western states of the USA and in the southern parts of South America. It's in large parts of Africa and Asia, and it is the climate of most of Australia. Of course, deserts have a dry climate, like the Sahara Desert in North Africa. Dry climates are very hot in the day, but in winter they are very cold at night. The fifth climate type is called tropical. Why tropical? It is the climate in many areas between the tropics. The Tropic of Cancer, north of the equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn, south of the equator. The tropical climate is hot, sometimes very hot. It is also humid. Finally, we have the mountain climate. Mountains, of course, are high. Some mountains are very high. The height, or altitude, of these mountains affects the climate. The highest mountains in the world are the Rockies in the west of the US, the Andes in the west of South America, then the Alps in the centre of Europe, and, of course, the Himalayas in the north of India. In these mountain areas, it is colder than the rest of the region. Why? Because the area is high above sea level.
Alright, you guys, so that was actually really long and really interesting. Some new information I personally didn't know until now. Okay, so we have the first climate type is called polar, and it has that dark green color to it on the map. Okay, so polar, as you can guess, is very cold and also very dry. Okay, and then we have continental, has that light green to it, and continental is also cold and it's also humid, you guys. Okay, so it's still cold and humid. Then we have mild. So mild has that yellow color to it, and mild is actually a little bit better now, so warm and humid. Then we have dry, that orange color, which is hot in daytime but cold at night. That's what the professor said. So dry, hot in daytime but cold at night. And we have tropical. Tropical is that red color. It's hot and humid. Okay, so hot and humid, that's tropical. And finally we have mountain. That's the mountain type that's kind of black and white, you know, so it has that white color, and based on the altitude affects climate. Okay, so it's not one fixed climate like the rest, it just depends on the altitude. Okay, so what is the climate type for your country? So if we're going to be talking about Saudi Arabia, let's actually have a look here and go and check. So we know for a fact that, where is the Middle East? The Middle East is about right here, right? So if we're going to be talking about the Middle East, right, as where we live, we'll probably say it's maybe warm and humid. Yeah, we can say warm and humid, and basically also a mix of dry, depending on where you live exactly in the Middle East. Okay, very simple stuff. What else do we got? Okay, here we have, let me actually go into the skills check here. Don't worry, these are just examples. I don't know, this is probably a glitch. So we have predicting with, and, but, or, because. All of these are joining words, you guys. I talked about this in the previous units, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, right? So we have, speakers often use joining words to connect two pieces of information. We can often predict the next piece of information from the joining word. So if I say because as a joining word, I know that I'm going to give a reason to why I'm saying something, right? So if I say, right, I want to be a chef because, and I can already tell where I'm going with this, because I like cooking or I like food, right? So if I'm saying or between two things, it probably means that I'm going to be giving multiple suggestions to someone, right? If I say but, it probably means that, hey, this is good or bad, but look on the bright side, or but look you gotta look somewhere else. So either negative or positive depending on how you say it in a sentence, right? So all of these are called joining words, and we use them to connect two pieces of information together. Okay, simple stuff. Let's just move on. Here we have exercise G. Let me actually open this so I can read it. We have listen to the summary. Number the next piece of information in each case. Okay, you guys. So I'm guessing a professor is going to start talking, and we're going to have to complete his sentences. Okay, you guys? Based on, obviously, the number. So let's go. Have a listen.
47. Exercise G. Listen to the summary. Number the next piece of information in each case.
So, to sum up, in this lecture, we have heard a definition of climate and
information about climate types, because he was just talking about climates. So climate types. So number 1, climate types.
so. There is a polar climate at the North Pole and
the South Pole, right? So what's the opposite of north, you guys? That's correct, South Pole. So South Pole will be number 2.
we talked about the continental climate. That is warmer than the polar climate, but
Okay, it's warmer than the polar climate, but however, it is still cold, you guys. Okay, so where is it still cold? It's right here. So it is still cold. It's obviously nowhere, it's not near as cold as polar climate, but it's still cold. Okay,
third, the mild climate. Mild means not hot and
also not cold, hence the name, mild, something in between. So not hot, not cold. Okay,
what's next? It's the dry climate. Now, dry climates have no rain or
not very much rain. Okay, so basically either no rain at all or not very much rain, maybe just a little bit. Okay,
deserts are obviously dry climates. They are very hot in the day, but
very cold at night. I already gave you guys the definition for the dry climate. Dry climate means very hot in the day and very cold at night. So number 6 will be very cold at night.
And now the fifth climate, the tropical climate. Tropical climates are between the Tropic of Cancer and
the Tropic of Capricorn. You guys saw that on the map, okay? So the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, okay?
Finally, there is the mountain climate. Mountain areas have a special climate because
the land is very high. So based on obviously the altitude that we just talked about, climate can change, right? So land is very high will be number 8, okay? And I think this one in check, we already know the answers, so that's all good. Anything else?
And so there we have our 6 climates.
Okay, so that was it. Pretty good stuff, simple stuff so far, you guys. Now let's move on to speaking. Alright, you guys, now let's move on to lesson 2, speaking. And here we have some pictures of obviously 2 different places. So we have an Inuit woman, an Inuit igloo, an Inuit dog sled. And here we have Maasai men with spears. Then we have Maasai mud huts and a Maasai man with his cows. And you guys will understand these places and these different people a little bit more throughout this lesson, okay? So exercise A here we have look at the photographs above and discuss these questions, okay? So obviously we're going to be talking about which region is cold, hot, dry, sunny, cloudy, and humid, is high above sea level, has a lot of snow and rain, is hard to live in, and finally is interesting to visit. So I'm not going to answer these right now, but as we go forward with the lesson, you guys should be able to form your own answers to these questions. Okay, so it's not one definitive answer. All right, so let's actually have a listen here to exercise B. Listen to a tutor, right? Look at the handout on the right. So let me actually open this for you guys. Okay, so here we have the handout that we have. Here, have a listen and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
49. Lesson 2. Speaking. Exercise B. Listen to a tutor. Look at the handout on the right.
Don't forget that we have our second tutorial on Wednesday, what's the date? The 15th. Yes, Wednesday the 15th. It's at 3 o'clock. The topic this week is, let me see, how do humans adapt to their environment? Okay, so think about that question and do some research before the tutorial. I want you to look at either the Inuit of northern Canada or the Maasai of East Africa. Find out about their region and, in particular, research the geography of the region and the climate. Okay, so that's next Wednesday, the 15th, at 3. How do humans adapt to their environment? See you then.
Alright, I hope you guys were able to understand a little bit more about the Maasai and the Inuit. Obviously, you guys will get the idea as we move forward. So here we have number 1. What extra information is in the handout that was not mentioned in the audio? And the first one that comes to mind is the room, because she said everything else basically. So she said the date, time, human geography faculty, tutorial, topic, the Inuit or the Maasai, and she gave us the research that we should do. But she failed to mention the room, so that's the extra information. So room B7 is the extra information in the handout. Okay. Here you guys, we have highlighted words in yellow. So we have faculty, tutorial, adapt, environment, geography, climate, and living things, right? And these are definitions for these words, right? So we have A, the normal pattern of weather in a region over a long period of time. And I think you guys know this. It's climate, right? Climate means the normal pattern of weather in a particular region over a long period of time, right? And then we have B, a meeting with a tutor to discuss ideas about a topic. What is that? When you meet a tutor to discuss ideas about a certain topic. That's correct. It's called a tutorial, right? Even coming from the word tutor. So, tutorial. Okay? Now, number C, a university department for a subject or group of subjects. And I'm pretty sure all of you guys know this. A university department for a subject or group of subjects is called a faculty. If I go, I'll go into faculty of business, faculty of English, or English studies, faculty of economics. Okay? So, faculty. And then we have D, an area with humans, plants, and animals, obviously, and etc. Obviously, this is basically everything around us. So, environment, right? Silent N, you guys. Environment. All right. And what else do we have here? We have E, simply change. You guys know when we talk about, you know, humans changing, animals changing, what do I exactly mean by change, right? What I mean is to simply adapt, right? So people adapt, and that's what it means to change, right? So adapt. And then we have mountains, rivers, deserts, etc. What is that? That's geography, right? That's basically the study of geography. So that basically sums it up. So you study mountains, rivers, deserts, etc. Some other stuff, okay? So geography. Geography. Okay? And finally we have plants, animals, insects. These are just, probably say, these are living things. That's what we got. So living things. Okay? So climate, tutorial, faculty, environment, adapt, geography, and living things. Okay, you guys? Now let's move on. Here we have listen to part of a tutorial, make notes about the Inuit in the table on the right. Okay, so now we're going to be listening to a tutorial, the one that we just got an introduction to. Okay, so I want you guys to either use this table right here, okay, or pull out a sticky note and make notes as we go. Okay, I'm going to be playing it once, and after that I'm actually going to be writing my own notes right here as well, and after that we'll compare notes. Alright, so here we go. Let's have a listen.
50. Exercise C. Listen to part of the tutorial. Make notes about the Inuit in the table on the right.
Right, Anya. So, what can you tell us about the Inuit?
OK, well, first geography. They live in northern Canada and in Greenland. The area is very flat and low. It is only a few metres above sea level. Some of it is an ice sheet.
Sorry, what does that mean?
It's a large area of ice on top of the sea.
OK, go on.
Right. The Inuit live in a polar climate, so it is very cold. It snows from late August to April.
Interesting.
Oh, I forgot to say, the temperature in winter sometimes goes down to -75.
Sorry, what did you say?
-75.
-75? That's freezing.
What other living things are in their environment?
Well, there are polar bears, seals and whales. There aren't any trees and there are only a few bushes.
So, how do they adapt to their environment?
Well, there are two main ways. Firstly, they have very thick clothes. They make coats and hats from fur. The fur comes from polar bears. And they make boots from seal skin. And secondly, they live in houses called igloos. They make the houses from ice, but they are very warm.
Anything else?
Yes, they use the dogs from the region. The dogs pull sledges on the snow.
What are sledges?
They are carts, but they don't have wheels.
Alright, I hope you're able to get some notes down, and I think you guys probably noticed that most of the audio in that tutorial was based off of these photographs here, right? So she talked briefly about a dog sled, an igloo, and basically Inuit as a whole, right? The Maasai and different people, okay? So you guys could probably answer some of these questions now. So we know that the Inuit is not high above sea level, so we'll probably say the Maasai is high above sea level. What has a lot of snow/rain would probably say the Inuit, just because that place is full of snow and I'm guessing it rains as well. What is hard to live in? Obviously, this answer will depend on you as a student. So will you be able to tolerate, extreme cold? Like, I'm not talking, your average, winter or freezing winter even. I'm talking about -75 degrees. Like, you're basically gonna be like, I can't even imagine living like that. So for me, I'd rather live in a hot, kind of poor place instead of living, constantly in thick jackets and just basically, I don't know, man. I think that living in the Maasai would be better. Obviously, everyone has his own answer. You do you, okay? And what is interesting to visit? For me, obviously, even though I wouldn't want to live there, I think that living with the Inuit people would probably be, an interesting visit, okay? Maybe not the best, but obviously interesting nonetheless. And what is cold, hot, dry, sunny, cloud, humid? Probably the Maasai. It's, the Inuit is simply, it's never going to be hot. It's never going to be, it might be dry, but I don't think so. Never sunny, and probably never ever humid, okay? So yeah. Now let's actually move now to these notes here. I'm not going to be able to write them down, so I hope you're able to get some notes. I already got mine here. So here we have, first of all, we have geography, and like she said, the Inuit live in North Canada, Greenland. Okay, what else, you guys? She said that, yeah, it's flat and low, right? And it has sort of an ice sheet. So basically, what is an ice sheet? An ice sheet is a layer of ice on top of the sea, okay? So it's flat, low, and an ice sheet, okay? And now let's move on to climate. For climate, I'll probably say very cold, and I'll probably add a minus 75 degrees Celsius. And I'll probably also say snow. It snows from late August to April, okay? So are there other living things with Inuits? Yes, there are polar bears, seals, whales. That's about it. But there are no trees, and we do have some small bushes, but yeah, that's about it. And finally, let's talk a little bit about adaptation. So how do humans adapt to this extreme weather? Because as we know, humans were not, are not biologically able to withstand such extreme cold, right? So how do they adapt to that? So they obviously use thick clothes from animal skins, and they make boots from seal skin, okay? And they use something here actually in the photograph called an Inuit igloo, or basically an igloo short. You guys know these penguin cartoons that have that igloo thingy? Yeah, it's made of snow, but it's actually very warm inside. Alright, I don't know how that's possible, don't ask me, but it's very warm inside. Okay, so these were the notes that I wrote down. Compare yours to mine and see if yours need any adjustment. Alright, so now we're going to be reading the tutorial now. So it's the same tutorial, probably not complete, but most of it is here. And we want to complete the sentences, right? But before we do that, let's actually check the skills check here. So here we have something called taking part in a tutorial. So if you're the one speaking in a tutorial, or if you're someone simply listening to a tutorial and want to be engaging throughout the whole tutorial, how do you do so, right? What are some phrases that can help you initiate conversation, right? Or attract the listener's attention, right? So if you're a speaker, you can start by saying there are two, obviously two is subjective to change, so we can say there are 2, 3, 4, 5 main ways, right? And then continue with what you're going to say. And then you can also start or keep going by saying firstly or secondly, right? So firstly, I want to talk about this, and secondly, I want to talk about that, right? And as you keep going, if you forgot to say something, right, or you want to just add on, you could also say, "Oh, I forgot to say," and keep going, right? We actually heard all of these listening to the audio above. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Now, let's move to the listener's POV a little bit. So, if I'm a listener, how can I interrupt basically a speaker talking in a tutorial in a professional manner, right? So obviously I can ask him a question before starting. So what can you tell us about, and then the topic, right? And in the middle I could probably say, or after raising my hand, or I don't know, permission wise, I could say what is or what are, and depending on what it is I'm talking about, right? And if I didn't say something, or didn't understand something correctly, I can probably say, what did you say? As in, sorry, I don't understand, can you repeat yourself, right? And if it's done, I could probably say, go on. Go on here simply means, alright, you can move on, move forward, we're done, okay? And after that, in the end, if you think that the speaker is done, but you're not too sure, you can probably say, anything else? I mean, if the speaker's done, he'll say no. If he's not done, he'll say yes, and he'll keep going, okay? So now let's open here the reading. Okay, so here we have complete the sentences. Okay, so we have what do we have here? Exercise D, right? So here we have right. So can you dash the Inuit? So obviously, let me check down here. So can you tell us, you guys? Okay, so what can you tell us about the Inuit, right? So what can you tell us about and the topic, the Inuit? Okay, well, first, geography. So she's going to talk first about geography. Some of the land is an ice sheet, okay? So obviously someone probably didn't understand, so he said, or she said, sorry, what is dash? What is probably an ice sheet, right? Because that just makes sense. What is an ice sheet? She doesn't understand, or he doesn't understand what an ice sheet is. So some of the land is an ice sheet. Sorry, what is an ice sheet? It's a large area of ice on top of the sea. And when understood, they can probably say or simply say, okay, go on. Go on as in, yeah, keep going. I got it now. Right? The Inuit live in a polar climate, so it is very cold. Oh, I forgot, dash. The temperature in winter sometimes goes to -75, you guys. And here we can say, I forgot to say, right? So, oh, I forgot to say the temperature in winter sometimes goes down to -75. Okay? And here we have, sorry, what did you say? Okay, like we just said, because probably didn't understand or is in complete shock by the fact that it's freezing cold because it's -75 degrees. So, oh, I forgot to say the temperature in winter sometimes goes down to -75. Sorry, what did you say? -75. Okay, so how do they adapt to their environment? Okay, well, there are two main ways, right? That's what we just said here. There are two main ways. So there are two main ways. Obviously, the number is subject to change. Firstly, they have very thick clothes, and secondly, the tutorial goes on. And finally, the listener asks anything else that you simply want to add. And like I said, if the listener wants to keep going, he'll say yes. If not, he'll end it right there. So, yes, they use the dogs from the region on a sledge, okay? Alright, you guys, hope you're able to understand how you can engage in a tutorial, right? So from the speaker, there are two main ways, firstly and secondly, and oh, I forgot to say, these are just simple phrases that can be used in a tutorial. And from the listener's POV, we can say, what can you tell us about what is /r, what did you say, go on, and anything else. Alright, you guys? So now let's move on, and this right here is going to require you guys to do some research. So we just, you guys see the style of research on the Inuit, right? I want you guys to do something similar, but for the Maasai, right? So research information, read the information about the geography of the Maasai region. So think of it as, instead of the Inuit region, it's now the Maasai region. And you can work in groups, so 3 people a group is fine, right? And read the information, in the book, and do your own research, right? About, you could use your notes from here to make even more notes about the Maasai. So, for example, you can talk about geography from the internet, of course, climate, other living things, and finally, adaptation. How can humans adapt to this different or completely different lifestyle, I should say. Okay? So that was speaking, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, now moving on to lesson 3, vocabulary and pronunciation. And here we have 5 pictures, obviously different places around the world with different climates, okay, and different, obviously, seasons. Alright, so let's hop into exercise A here. Here we have ask and answer in pairs. So what I would like for you guys to do is to ask these questions to each other, and everybody should have a specific answer depending on where he lives. If you guys do it online, or if you guys are in the same class, you guys should take turns with these questions, okay? So let's actually have a listen here. So what's the weather like today? So if I'm going to answer this personally, on the day that this was recorded, it was a pretty humid day, I'd say, right? So sunny and humid. So what's the weather like today? It's sunny and humid, okay? And then we have number 2, what was the weather like last weekend? And if I recall, the weather was actually really, really sunny last weekend. So the weather was sunny last weekend. Okay? And then we have number 3. What will the weather be like tomorrow? Okay, so based on today, the weather will probably either be dry or sunny tomorrow. Okay, so what will the weather be like tomorrow? It'll be either sunny or dry. Okay, you guys? Now let's move to the skills check here. Here we have using the preposition like. So the thing about using the preposition like is that we use it when we're asking about the weather. Okay, so for example, if I ask, what's the weather like today? What's the weather like last weekend? What will the weather be like tomorrow? What's the weather like today? Again, right? So all of these, we use the preposition like. Now, take note that we do not use the preposition when answering. So if someone asks me, what's the weather like today? I don't say, it's like sunny, humid. No, that's wrong. I just say it's sunny or humid, or it's good. If someone's asking me about the future, I can say it's going to be either sunny or humid, okay? So no like, don't use like in the answer, only when asking about the weather, okay? Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have, look at the words in the box on the right. Mark each word adjective or verb. So let me open this here. Okay, so here we have these words, and let's mark each one if it's either an adjective or a verb. And I'm pretty sure you guys know what an adjective is and what a verb is, you guys. Adjectives are describing words, and verbs are action words, okay? So we have number 1. What is number 1? Cloudy. If I say it's a cloudy day, obviously it's an adjective, so I'll just write adj, adjective. Then we have cold, also a describing word, adjective. Here we have dry, also an adjective. Oh. And then we have foggy. Foggy is also an adjective, you guys. And here we have hot, also an adjective. Okay. And then we have raining. Raining is actually a verb, you guys, okay? It's an action. So raining, and then we have snowing, also a verb. Stormy, that's an adjective. And then we have sunny. Sunny is also an adjective. It's a sunny day, right? I'm describing the day, so adjective. Then we have wet, also an adjective. And finally we have windy, which is also an adjective. Just like I said, it's a windy day, it's a windy week, right? All of these are adjectives. So most of these were adjectives except for raining and snowing. Now, what do we have here? Number 2, ask about the weather in the photographs above. Use words from the box. Okay, so the words that we just tried to identify, if it was either an adjective or verb, we're going to be using these to ask questions about the weather in the photographs, in the 5 photographs above. Okay, so he gives us an example here. What's the weather like in photograph 1? I answer by, it's foggy, right? And then we have number 2. It's probably, if I'm going to answer, I'll probably say it's windy, sunny, and dry, right? What's the weather like in photograph number 2? What's the weather like in photograph number 2? Yeah, I'll probably say it's windy, sunny, and dry, okay? What's the weather like in photograph 3? I'll probably say it's hot, sunny, and dry, okay? What's the weather like in photograph number 4? I'll say it's snowing / it's cold, okay? And finally, what's the weather like in photograph number 5? Now, I'm going to say some things here. I'll probably say it's raining, it's wet, and it's cold. Okay? So now let's move on. Here we have, look at the questions in exercise A above. Underline the verb in each question and circle the preposition. Okay, so take a look. He wants us to underline the verb in each question. These are the questions from exercise A. Right? And he wants us to circle the preposition, okay? So let's have a read with number 1 here. What's the weather like today? So instantly, we talked about how we use the preposition like when talking about or when asking about the weather. So circle the preposition. Okay, so can I circle? Yep. So what's the weather like today? So like is the preposition. Can you guys tell me where the verb is? That's correct. It's verb to be. It's hidden in the apostrophe form. So what's, when I say what's here, I mean what is, right? So this is right here. Yep. So what, this S right here refers to is, which is a verb to be. What is the weather like today? Okay. Now let's go to number 2. What was the weather like last weekend? Okay. Again, preposition. It's a question, so like. Oh, so what was the weather like last weekend? And where's the verb, you guys? That's correct. The verb is was. Okay, verb to be in the past tense. So was where. Okay, so what was. Okay, so was and like, the verb and the preposition. And finally, we have number 3. What will the weather be like tomorrow? Again, like is the preposition. Okay, and here we have 2 verbs. Can you guys name them? That's correct. The first one is will. So what will the weather be like tomorrow? Okay, will is the first verb, but we have one more actually. That's correct. Be is also considered a verb here. Okay, so what will the weather be like tomorrow? Okay, you guys? Now let's move on. Here we have exercise D. Look at the conversation on the right. Okay, so this is going to be mostly listening, you guys. Let me actually open this. Okay, so listen and follow the conversation in the pictures. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going a little bit with the pictures while you guys are listening. Okay, and then I want you guys to pause the video and practice this conversation in pairs, right? So use a similar topic or the same topic if you guys want, but switch it up, right? So talk with your friends, with your family members, whoever you're with right now, and try and have a conversation with them, okay? Here you go.
51. Lesson 3. Vocabulary and Pronunciation. Exercise D1. Listen. Follow the conversation in the pictures.
Hi, how are things?
They're good, thanks.
What's the weather like with you?
Oh, it's great. Very warm and sunny.
You're lucky. It's terrible here.
Why? Is it raining?
Yes, it is. It's pouring.
Oh dear.
Okay. Hope you guys, that was just a short conversation about the weather. Obviously, someone starting a conversation by asking about the weather and how things are, you know, and just keep going from there. All right? So, like I said, practice the conversation and let's move on. Okay, so here we have exercise E. Listen to some conversations. So we're going to be listening to some conversation. Answer the questions about each conversation. Okay, so we're going to be listening to different conversations here. I'm going to let it play the first time. Oh, this one's written. Let me reset that. Okay, so we're going to be listening to all these conversations. I'll let it play the first time, and then we'll see where we're going to go from there. Okay, have a listen.
53. Exercise E. Listen to some conversations. Answer the questions about each conversation.
1.
What's the weather forecast for the weekend?
Well, it's going to be cloudy on Saturday.
Oh no. What about Sunday?
It's going to rain, I'm afraid.
Typical. It always rains at the weekend.
2.
Does it often snow in London?
No, it doesn't. But it often rains.
What's the average temperature in the summer?
I'm not sure. About 17 degrees, I think. 3.
Bulent, what's the climate like in your country?
Well, in the summer, it's hot, and there isn't much rain.
What about in the autumn or the winter?
In the winter, it's sometimes very cold. 4.
It's getting colder.
Yes, it is. Winter's nearly here.
It's dark at 5 in the evening now.
I hate the winter.
Okay, now that we had a listen, let's listen to that one more time, but we'll be pausing it to write the answers down. Okay, here we go.
53. Listen to some conversations. Answer the questions about each conversation.
1.
What's the weather forecast for the weekend?
Well, it's going to be cloudy on Saturday.
Oh no.
Okay, let me pause it here. The question, what's the weather forecast for the weekend? And the answer to that is it's going to be cloudy on Saturday, right? That's what we just heard. It's going to be cloudy on Saturday. Let's keep going.
What about Sunday?
It's going to rain, I'm afraid.
Typical.
So it's going to be cloudy on Saturday, and we can probably say it's going to rain on Sunday. Okay?
It always rains at the weekend.
2.
Does it often snow in London?
No, it doesn't. But it often rains.
What's the average temperature in the summer?
I'm not sure. About 17 degrees, I think.
Okay, so what's the average summer temperature in London? And like we just heard, he's not really too sure, so we're gonna write about 17.
3.
Oh, okay, so what's the average summer temperature in London? We'll go about 17 degrees. Okay, let's keep going.
Bulent, what's the climate like in your country?
Well, in the summer, it's hot, and there isn't much rain.
Okay, let's pause this. So what's the climate like in Bulent's country? Okay, so he just said, let's write down in the summer, right? It's hot. So it's hot, and there isn't much rain, right? That's what he just said. Let's keep going.
What about in the autumn or the winter?
In the winter, it's sometimes very cold.
Okay, so he said in the winter, so we'll write down in the winter, it's sometimes very cold. Anything else?
4.
Okay.
It's getting colder.
Yes, it is. Winter's nearly here.
It's dark at 5 in the evening now.
I hate the winter.
Okay, so it's getting colder. So we'll probably say which season is it? It's probably autumn. So A-U-T-U-M-N. Oh, and I did not write the A. Cool. So autumn, okay? So what's the weather forecast for the weekend? It's going to be cloudy on Saturday. It's going to rain. Let me keep reading. It's going to rain on Sunday, okay? What's the average summer temperature in London? About 17 degrees. Number 3. What's the climate like in Bulent's country? In the summer, it's hot and there isn't much rain. However, in the winter, it's sometimes very cold. So not always cold, just sometimes. And finally, which season is it? It's autumn. All right? Now, let's move on, you guys. Okay. So here we have pronunciation check saying the or the, okay? So we have different pronunciations depending on where the is placed, right? So we pronounce the letter E, so this letter right here, in 2 different ways, right? So if it's before a consonant letter, we don't really pronounce it. So for example, the day, the night, the play, right? But if it's before a vowel letter, we pronounce the E. So I can say the answer, the elephants, the apples. You get what I mean? So if it's a consonant letter, I'm not going to pronounce the E. So the day, the night, the month, right? But if it's a vowel letter, I'm going to have to say the E. Okay, so the answer, the elephants, the umbrellas, the apples. Okay, so now let's actually open this. We can have just a quick exercise here. So mark each the 1 or 2 in each sentences. So what's the forecast for the weekend? Okay, so 1 is the one with the consonant letter and 2 is the vowel letter, right? So I'll probably say this is 1, right? Because the F, obviously, forecast, not a vowel, okay? So that will be number 1. What's the average temperature in the summer? Okay, so here we have 2 that's actually. Give me a second. So we're gonna say 1 1 because the weekend is obviously W, so it's a consonant. Okay, what's the average temperature in the summer? So obviously the first the will be 2 because the average, obviously a vowel letter here. Temperature in the summer. Summer is not a vowel, it's a consonant. So this second one will be the first. What about in the autumn? So obviously autumn is a vowel letter, A, so that will be number 2. It's dark at 5 in the evening. Obviously evening, again 2 because E is a vowel. Okay, now listen you guys and let's check our answers.
54. Pronunciation check. Listen and check.
What's the forecast for the weekend? What's the average temperature in the summer? What about in the autumn? It's dark at 5 in the evening now.
Okay, now I want you guys to practice saying these sentences until you get these 2 things down. The fact that before a consonant letter we don't pronounce the E, and before a vowel letter we pronounce the E. Alright, now let's move on to our final skills check here. Starting a conversation. And you guys know there are probably like a million ways you can start a conversation with. But you know, a good way that you can start a conversation is talking about the weather. You know, you could use it as your friend, whether in a negative way or a positive way, right? So to start a conversation talking about the weather, you could probably say a simple phrase like, wow, it's nice outside, or it's nice today. Or probably a question, hey, is it raining outside? What a lovely day, right? So things of that nature can be used to start a conversation. And here we can actually listen to the start of some conversation using the weather. Here, have a listen.
55. Skills check. Listen to the start of some conversations.
It's nice today.
Yes, it is. Lovely weather for...
Is it raining outside?
I'm afraid so. It's horrible, but I think...
What a lovely day.
It is. It's beautiful. Much better than...
And you guys see, by just using the weather to your advantage, as in asking a question or simply saying a phrase, you can spark a conversation and start talking to someone. Whether it's a friend, a stranger, that's a totally different story. Okay, guys? Simple stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Alright, you guys, now moving on to lesson 4, reading. Here we have, look at the text opposite, read the heading and the introduction. What will the text talk be about? And number the correct items below in the correct order. Look quickly at the text and check. Okay, so before I do that, let's actually check the skills check here. Here we have using an introduction. So many texts begin with an introduction, that's obvious. The introduction is the first paragraph. Read the introduction carefully, and when reading it carefully, it can actually answer 2 important questions. What are those? It's what information will be in this text, okay? And what order will the information be in, okay? So these questions may or may not be, but for the most part, are often answered in the introduction, okay? So let's have a read here. So this is called the heading, and then we have the introduction, okay? So adapting to the environment. How do animals live in different regions of the world? Humans and other living things adapt to their environment. Humans adapt their behavior. They build warm houses or cool houses. They wear warm clothes or cool clothes. Animals adapt in a different way. Over thousands of years, animals adapt their bodies to their environment. In this article, we look first at animal adaptation in general. Then, we see the adaptations of two particular animals, the polar bear and the giraffe. Finally, we consider the effects of climate change. Can animals adapt? Okay, so based on what we just read, you guys, so now I know what information will be in this text and its order as well, right? Weird. I cannot open this, so we're just gonna have to do this orally, you guys. So number one, what is the text gonna be talking about? It's gonna be talking about animal adaptation in general, okay? That's the main story. And then he's going to get a little bit more specific into polar bears and giraffes. So animal adaptation in general, polar bears, and then giraffes. And finally, he's going to talk a little bit about climate change, okay? Now, let's look at the photographs on the right. What do you know about polar bears and what about giraffes? Okay, so before I do that, let's actually continue reading this, and we're going to read all of it, and then we'll move on to the questions, okay? So here we go. Animals adapt to survive in an environment. Animals survive for many reasons. Some animals are stronger than other animals. Some animals are faster. Some animals have better camouflage, so other animals can't see them. Some animals are taller, so they can reach fruit or leaves. Some animals are more protected. For example, the elephant has a thick skin, and the turtle has a shell. Better adapted animals live. Adaptation is the key to survival. Polar bears live in a region of ice and snow. They have white fur, so it is difficult to see them in their environment. The fur is thick, so they stay warm. They have big paws. The paws spread their weight so they can walk on the snow. Polar bears eat fish, so they have to be good swimmers. Their big paws help them swim. They can close their noses under the water. Giraffes live in a region of grassland and high trees. They have brown and yellow skin, so it is difficult to see them in their environment. They have long, thin legs, so they stay cool. They have long necks, so they can eat leaves from the high trees. The trees have thorns, but giraffes have thick lips, so they do not get hurt. Their long necks also help them to see lions and leopards in the distance. Many scientists say that the climate is changing. Can humans and animals adapt to climate change? Humans can adapt because they can change their behavior. They can wear thicker clothes or make their houses cooler. Animals can adapt too, but it takes thousands of years. Animals cannot change their bodies in 20 or 50 years. Okay, now that we read the text, let's answer the questions. So here we have, again, look at the photographs on the right. What do you know about polar bears and what do you know about giraffes? Okay, so this will probably all depend on you guys. So whatever you know about polar bears. So I know that polar bears have, white fur. They live in snow areas, right? They eat fish and they are good swimmers, right? And what do I know about giraffes? They have long lips, or not long lips, long neck, right? So long necks, and they have thick lips, okay? And they have thin legs, right? That helps them stay cool, and they can see, that long neck helps them to see leopards and lions from afar. All right, and then we have Exercise C, read the second paragraph, underline the word which means, and we have definition and we got to write down the word. Okay, so here. So we have, read the second paragraph, underline and then write the word which means live, not die. Okay, so live as a verb, not die. So to live and not die probably means survive, right? Animals adapt to survive, so live and not die. So survive. That's what it means. Colors or patterns to hide in an environment. and this one, I know this one actually, it's called camouflage. What is camouflage, you guys? It's what animals and humans as well, especially people in the military, that use to, hide or have a very similar color to the, or pattern to an environment. So for example, you guys see snipers in movies and even in real life in the army, especially snipers, because they gotta stay in, very still in the same place for long periods of time. So they wear this kind of suit that allows them to look like they're a tree or a plant. So when the guy or girl lays on the ground and gets in position, they do not get spotted, right? Same thing with animals. You have some lizards that can change their camouflage, and they can change their color to better fit the environment, so they don't get seen or eaten by other predators or animals. Okay, so camouflage is the word we're looking for. So camouflage. Okay, get to something high. What is that? That is probably the word, where is it? It's probably reach. So some animals are taller, so they can reach fruit or leaves. Okay, so get to something high is probably reach. Okay, or it is reach. Kept from danger. Kept from danger is protected, you guys. So some animals are more protected. Obviously, protected here means kept from danger. Okay, so protected. And finally, and not finally, here we have number 5, a hard covering. So a turtle has a shell. You guys know the shell of a turtle, right? That hard, thick shell. Yeah, that's a hard covering. It's called a shell. And finally, we have living, or simply staying alive. And this is called survival, you guys, okay? So it's just like the word survive, live and not die, and this one means living and actually staying alive, okay? So adaptation is key to survival. So living and staying alive and not dying. Survival. Okay? So survive, camouflage, reach, protected, shell, and finally survival. Okay? Now let's close this. Here we have exercise D, and I want you guys to work on this in pairs. So, get a friend, right, or a classmate, and I want one of you guys to read about polar bears from the text, and one to specifically read about giraffes, and find these parts of the body in the photograph. So we have fur, leg, lips, neck, nose, paw, and skin. And you can make some, very simple notes about simple adaptations, right? How have these animals adapted over time to the environment, right? So let me now try. So for example, let's start with polar bears. So they have white fur. If I'm going to make a note about that, I'll probably say it's difficult to see in the snow, right? We just got that from the text. So white fur, difficult to see in snow. And then we have thick fur. Obviously, the white fur is also thick so that they can stay warm. Like I said, they live in snow places, so it's probably freezing cold, so they need the fur to stay warm. Okay? And we also know that they have big paws. Do we have paw here? Yeah, we do. So big paws, right? That helps them walk on snow and helps them to swim, right? It evens their weight out. And finally, we have nose that they use for breathing, and they can close it for swimming. Okay? Now that we've done those, let's move on to giraffes. Okay, so giraffes have brown or yellow, both are correct, skin. So they don't have fur, they have skin, just like us humans. And they can be difficult to see when they are in their own environment. And they also have long and thin legs that helps them to stay cool. Okay, we have legs here? Yeah, we do. And then we also have neck, so long necks that helps giraffes eat leaves from high trees and to see lions and leopards in the distance. Okay? And what else did they have? They have thick lips. Yeah, I forgot about that. So they have thick lips that help them, eat their food better because, thorns, these things right here, can be difficult to eat, but they do not hurt them because of their thick lips. Okay? So these were all the parts of the body, and I did notes for all the adaptations. yours should be similar to what I just said, okay? Now, read the final paragraph, okay? And why is climate change a problem for animals? Okay, let's read that one more time, actually. So we have, many scientists say that the climate is changing. Can humans and animals adapt to climate change? Humans can adapt because they can change their behavior. They can wear thicker clothes or make their houses cooler. Animals can adapt too, but it takes thousands of years. Animals cannot change their bodies in 20 or 50 years. Now, obviously, this answer will be up to you, but one of the possible answers that I can use, I'll probably say, animals can't adapt or cannot adapt their bodies quickly, while us humans can use machines and other equipment for help, right? So let's say us humans, when the temperature gets really hot during summer, I'm just giving an example here, you guys, we use air conditioners, right? Keeps the entire house cold, you're having fun, you're comfortable. But an animal doesn't have that luxury, right? They're not smart enough to create their own machines, right? That's humanity's thing, right? So what do animals do? Their bodies adapt over time. Just like if you get, or let's just use cooking for example. So if you cook a lot as a human, right? If you cook a lot, your fingertips will get a little bit desensitized over time. So what you once felt was extreme pain from, obviously the fire and cooking and stuff, now you obviously feel it, but it doesn't trigger that same response in your brain that, oh, hey, this is really hot, you need to take your hand off it, because your body now knows that, hey, this is not so bad, you can cook, it's fine, nothing bad's gonna happen, right? This is how biologically, or how it works biologically at least, right? So for animals, they don't have those machines, and that is why their bodies take more time to adapt to the environment, right? So something like the polar bear, for example, how long do you think it's going to take? Like, they have thick fur, you guys. If they don't live in cold climates, they will die, right? Because of obviously, if they live in warm climates, it's like living in a constant summer. Basically, it's like being cooked. Like, there's no other way to describe it. Okay, so that was my answer. Probably got a little bit off topic, but hey, this is just to tell you guys about climate change. So now we have exercise F. Look at the highlighted words in the text. Let me actually open this so you guys can get a better view. Look at the highlighted words in the text, and here we have warm, cool, stronger, faster, and more protected, right? So what part of speech are they? So warm and cool are adjectives, right? Just read it. They build warm houses. Adjective, describing word. Or cool houses, also a describing word, right? And here we have stronger, faster, more protected. Also adjectives, but they're comparative adjectives, because I'm comparing between animals. Some are stronger, some are faster, some have better camouflage, and some are simply more protected, okay? So they're adjectives, but they're comparative adjectives, coming from the word compare, okay? So we'll write down here ADJ as an adjective. Alright, you guys? So that was reading. I'll see you in the next one. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to Lesson 5, Writing and Grammar, okay? So here we have exercise A, study the words in the box, okay? So before we do that, actually, let's hop into the skills check 1 here. Here we have comparative adjectives, and we talked, briefly about comparative adjectives in the reading section, right? So we're going to dive a little bit deeper here, okay? So we make one-syllable adjectives into comparatives by adding ER, right? So normal adjectives turn into comparatives when we add ER. So for example, cold becomes colder, dry becomes drier, hot becomes hotter, large becomes larger, and etc. You got the idea. So here we also have some of these comparative adjectives in sentences, such as spring is warm warmer than winter, right? I can't say spring is warm than winter. That's a normal adjective. It doesn't work with the sentence. I have to say warmer, E-R in the end, okay? Than winter. Giraffes have longer necks than bears, right? Longer, ER, necks than bears, all right? Now, we have also short adjectives. So with most short adjectives, we just add either ER as well or simply an R. So for example, here we have the word large. So the word large already has an E, so I don't need to add another E. I'll just write R, right? And there also are some adjectives that we sometimes have to, switch the spelling a little bit. So for example, the word big, I'm going to be adding double G, right? So big becomes bigger, okay? Sunny, we get rid of the Y and add I-E-R. Same story with dry. I get rid of the Y and I add I-E-R, okay? So now, let me open this for you guys. Here we have which ones are adjectives, underline them. So these are all words in the box, right? And we want to know which of these are adjectives. So we start with number 1, better. Better is obviously an adjective, right? And what are adjectives, you guys? Adjectives are describing words, okay? We talked about this before, just reminding all of you that adjectives are describing words. So we have consider, not an adjective, sorry. Cooler, yes, that's an excuse me, adjective. Danger, not an adjective. Faster, that's true. Stronger, that's true, that's also an adjective. Summer, winter, not an adjective. Okay, so number 2, what parts of speech are the other words? And here what he basically wants to know is, what are these words? If they're not adjectives, what are they exactly? So let me actually write this down. So consider, and I'll open a bracket, and I'll write a V down. And you guys know what this V stands for? It stands for verb. What is consider? You guys know or should know what verbs are. Verbs are action words, right? So when I say, I'm going to consider doing it, that probably I'm doing an action. I'm considering, right? So consider is a verb. What's the second word? We have danger. Okay, and what is danger, you guys? Danger is just simply a noun. Okay, and what else do we have? We have consider, danger, and then we have summer, right? So summer, also a noun, you guys. Okay, simple noun, nothing fancy. Then finally we have winter. Okay, and that's also a noun. Yeah, so consider, verb, danger, noun, summer, noun, and winter, noun. Better, cooler, faster, stronger are all adjectives. Okay, now let's move on. Here we have exercise B. Study the words below. They are all from the listening and the reading in this unit. Okay, so all of these words are from the listening section and the reading section, so we should be familiar with these words. Write the comparative form of each adjective and be careful with the spelling. Okay, so before I do that, let us actually take a look at skills check 2 and 3 here. Here we have comparative adjectives as well. Now we talked about how we change, or how do we add the comparative form to adjectives and short adjectives. But here we have long adjectives and how we add that comparative form to an adjective, or a long adjective, I should say. So with long adjectives, we put the word more in front of the adjectives. So here, for example, if I say interesting, I don't say interesting-er. I say more interesting. That makes sense. Interesting-er just sounds, it's wrong, it doesn't make sense, okay? You'll leave people confused if you ever say that, okay? Also the word humid. Alright, I don't say humider, it's humider. No, it's more humid, okay? So for long adjectives, we add the word more before the adjective to turn it into a comparative adjective, okay? Now, here we have skills check 3. Alright, so we have a small number of adjectives, right, that use a completely different word to change into a comparative adjective. For example, the word good, right? Simple adjective. If I want to change it, I'm going to say better, and that's why in exercise A, I said that better is an adjective or a comparative adjective. Bad becomes worse. I don't say badder, I don't say gooder. I don't say she's gooder than me, I say she's better than me. Okay, same thing with bad. I don't say she's badder than me, she's worse than me. Alright, simple stuff. Now let's go back to exercise B. So we're going to be writing the comparative form of each of these adjectives, but guys, I want you to be careful with the spelling, okay? Okay, so here we have fast. Obviously, fast becomes faster, right? Simple ER. Now we have tall. Tall becomes taller, right? Simple ER as well. Thick. What is thick, you guys? Again, just add a simple ER. Thicker. Then we have cool. Also add an ER, so cooler. Cloudy. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. So we're gonna write cloud and then get rid of the Y, add I, and then ER. Always do that with any, adjective that has the letter Y in the end. So cloudy becomes cloudier. Then we have F, big, obviously becomes bigger, double G, and then ER. Protected, you guys. What do you think is the comparative form for the adjective protected? Is it protected-er? Nope. It's more protected. Okay, you guys remember when you talked about using more with long adjectives? That's one of these cases. Then we have dangerous. What do you guys think? Again, simply more and write the word again, dangerous. Alright, then we have good becomes better, not gooder, or more good becomes better, and bad becomes worse. Okay? Simple stuff. Let's move on. So here we have exercise C. Look at table 1 below, write 4 sentences, and compare the 2 towns, okay? So we're going to be using our comparative adjectives to use here in different sentences to compare the Inuit town and the Maasai town, okay? So here we have an example of what our sentences should look like. The Maasai town is higher than the Inuit town. And based on the information in the table here, we have the height, obviously talking about above sea level here, so 2,000 meters, and temperature is at -4 degrees for Inuit town and 28 degrees for Maasai town. Average rainfall 263 and 1,000, and average sunshine per day 5.1 hours and 8 hours for Maasai town. Okay, so if I was gonna use sentences that have comparative adjectives to compare the 2 towns, I'd probably say, obviously there's no one definite answer. You guys can use many different answers based on the information given in the table. So I could probably say the Inuit town is colder than the Maasai town, right? Because the temperature is much lower in the Inuit town. The Inuit town is lower than the Maasai town, obviously referring to height, as in above sea level. Okay? I could also say it is sunnier than the Inuit town. Obviously, it here I'm talking about the Maasai town, as it's sunnier than the Inuit town. It is wetter than the Inuit town, also referring to the Maasai town. It is wetter because of the average rainfall. Okay, you guys? Simple stuff. Let's move on. Okay, let me open exercise D for you guys here. So here we have, what do we use comparative adjectives for? And I literally just mentioned this like not even 5 minutes ago. So what do we use comparative adjectives for, you guys? Do we use it to talk about one thing, or to compare many things, or to compare 2 things? What do you guys think? That's correct. We use it to compare 2 things. So not one thing, not many things, just 2 things. Okay? Now here we have to complete the tables, so let's take a look here. Here we have table number 2, comparatives with short adjectives. So obviously these are short adjectives, so colder, faster, right? So Greenland dash colder dash Kenya. So I'd probably say Greenland is colder than Kenya, right? Number 2, giraffes are faster than elephants, right? Now, here we go to table number 3, comparatives, but this time with longer adjectives. And we said that with longer adjectives, we use the word more before the adjective itself to turn it into a comparative adjective, okay? So here we have Kenya is, simple verb to be, more humid than, again, than Greenland. Elephants are more protected than giraffes, right? Okay? And then what do we have? Make the comparative statements into yes or no questions. So we're going to be turning these 4 statements into questions, okay? So Greenland is colder than Kenya. If I want to turn that to a question, I'd probably say, is Greenland colder than Kenya, right? And question mark, obviously. So is Greenland colder than Kenya, right? Number 2, giraffes are faster than elephants. I can say, as a question, are giraffes, right, faster than elephants? Question mark, right? And then, what do I have? Let me take a look here. Kenya is more humid than Greenland. I could probably say, is Kenya more humid than Greenland? And question mark, obviously. And finally, elephants are more protected than giraffes. I'll probably say, are elephants, are elephants more protected than giraffes? And again, the question mark. Okay, so is Greenland colder than Kenya? Are giraffes faster than elephants? Is Kenya more humid than Greenland? And finally, are elephants more protected than giraffes? Okay, simple stuff, you guys. Let's move on. And what do we have here? Here we have, look at table 4. What is the main difference between this table? Let me actually open this so you guys can get a better view here. So, what is the main difference between this table, so I'm guessing a table under, and tables 2 and 3? Why don't we finish the sentence? Okay, so let's take a look here. Here we have comparatives, but with no second item. So simply, you end with the comparative adjective, basically. So here we have, some animals are more protected. That's it. Some animals are faster. And it's comparative, but here I'm simply comparing with no second item. So nothing after the adjective. So I can already tell that there's no second item here, so that's the difference. But why? Why do I not add a second item? And I have an answer for that. We don't say the last part of the sentence simply because it's obvious what we're talking about. It's as simple as that. You guys remember when I gave that talk about nouns and pronouns and how, things can get repetitive? Yeah, same thing here, but kind of a little bit different. So you don't want to sound repetitive, and obviously everybody knows what you're talking about. So if I say some animals are more protected than other animals, it's not wrong, not necessarily wrong, but it's just everyone knows what you're talking about. So yeah, if I say some animals are more protected, I'm obviously comparing them without saying that I'm comparing them to other animals, right? Some animals are faster, for example. I can just stop there. I don't need to add than other animals. I know that you want to compare them to animals. I'm not going to compare them to insects, okay? So it's just something that's obvious, and that is why we don't write it, okay? So what is the second item in these sentences? Okay, Some people are happier. If I want to say, what is the second item in these sentences? Okay, so we have different sentences here, and he wants us to add a second item. So I'll probably say for number A, or A, some people are happier, I'll say, than other people. Right, you guys? Some plants are nicer to eat than other plants. You see how simple this is? And then we have C. Some dogs are more dangerous than other dogs, right? And then we have, there are two main differences between me and my friend. I'm taller and thinner than my friend. Again, okay? Than my friend. There are many differences between humans and animals. Humans are more intelligent than animals. Obviously, you don't need to write these down. When talking, you could end the sentence right here. So if I say, there are many differences between humans and animals. Humans are more intelligent. If I stop, I'm not wrong, and people will understand exactly what I'm talking about, right? Same thing here. If I say, there are two main differences between me and my friend. I'm taller and thinner. If I stop, yes, people understand what I mean. If I add, than my friend, then that's just up to me, alright? So it basically just depends on, you know, how you talk and your style, alright? So we have F, but animals, okay, so I'm guessing this is a continuation, but animals are more adapted to their environment than humans. So I guess if this is a continuation, then you really do need to say, to add than animals, okay? So yeah, that was about it, guys. What else do we have? Do we have anything else? No, that's about it. So now let's turn the page. Alright, you guys, so here we have exercise A. Study these sentences opposite, right? And before we do any of these things, what I want you guys to do is focus here in the skills check. We have using only and also. What the hell are they? Let me open this so you guys can get a better view here. So let's go down here. We have the words only and also are adverbs. You guys remember we talked a little bit about adverbs in the 98 course. So what are adverbs? They're basically words that tell us something extra about the information in the sentence, right? Let me elaborate a little bit. So here we have the word only. So when someone uses the word only, he's basically thinking about the object or a complement, right, in a small number or amount, or in simply a small group, right? So if I say only, I'm probably talking about something that's a small number or an amount, whether it's money, basically any number you guys can think of, whether it's for humans, money, groceries, anything, right? Or things that are small, basically, right? Not enough. But when I use also, it probably means that I think that the object or complement is the same or similar, right? So let's have some examples, and I'm sure you guys will start to pick it up as we go. So if I say he's only 5, when I say he's only 5, in my mind I'm probably telling like he's not that old. He's only 5, right? Very young. But if I say she is also 5, then I'm talking about something that's similar. Maybe she's also 5 as in the same age as her brother, for example, or as her other sister, right? So here we have, she only has one brother. And here what I mean is that only here means not enough. The amount is not enough, right? So normally people have more brothers, right? So when I say if I say, for example, she only has $10, right? What does that mean? It means that people have more than $10 and that, it's weird. So she only has one brother. So small amount, not enough. But if I say also here, if I say he also has one brother, right? It's probably, obviously comparing and it's the same or very similar to someone else. So if I say to my friend, to talk about someone else, he also has $100. That probably means that you have $100, I have $100, and he has $100 as well. Similar or same. Okay? So when do we use only and also in sentences so we don't get confused here? So the words go after the verb to be, right? So it goes after is, are, am. Okay? That's no question. I cannot use only and also before the verb to be. Okay, you guys? And two, we use it before other verbs. Okay? So it's after the verb to be, but before other verbs in the sentence if there are any. Okay? Let's get that out of the way. Now, let's go here to the exercise. So we have underline the verbs in each sentence. Okay, so either verb or verbs in each sentence. This is just totally not related. Let's just underline the verbs. Pretty simple stuff. So there are only a few bushes in the area. Obviously, the only verb here is verb to be. There are some parts of the world only have 2 seasons. We have a verb to have. Have is the verb. The region is cold and it is also humid. So the region is a verb and it is also humid. So 2 verbs. Then we have Baga has 2 seasons and Nazca also has 2 seasons. And the verbs here are has and has. Okay? Now, what do we have? Which adverb is in the first 2 sentences? Okay, let's check the adverbs. There are only a few bushes in the area. Some parts of the world only have 2 seasons. Can you guys guess? That's correct. It's only. That's the adverb in the first 2 sentences. Alright? What do we also have? Which adverb is in the 3rd and 4th sentence? Let's have a look. The region is cold and it is also humid. Baga has 2 seasons and Nazca also has 2 seasons. Obviously, the adverb here is also. Now, let's have a tick. Tick the correct rule for using the words only and also. Okay, do you guys remember what we said? Do they go before verb to be and after other verbs? Or do they go after all verbs in the sentence? Or do they go after verb to be and before other verbs? Or do they just simply go before all verbs? What do you guys think? We literally just talked about this. That's correct. They go after the verb to be and before other verbs. Okay, so C. Right, and we just read the skills check. Now let's move on. So here we're going to be rewriting some sentences with only, so we're going to be using the adverb in the correct place. And I'll remind you guys again, it's, adverbs, or especially only and also, go after the verb to be and before other verbs in the sentence. So now let's put that to practice here. So we have jungles are in tropical climates. How am I going to change this to add only? I'm going to say jungles, right, are only, that's where I can add only. So jungles are only in tropical climates. Okay? Jungles are only in tropical climates. Alright, what else do we have? In some regions, it rains in winter. I can say, in some regions, comma, or not comma, I don't need to add a comma, it rained, it only, so it only rains, got a little carried away there, it only rains in winter. Okay, so in some regions, it only rains in winter. Number 3, we have tigers live in Asia. I'll probably say tigers only live in Asia. Alright? Number 4, there are about 1,500 tigers in India. I can say there are only about 1,500 tigers in India, right? Let me add, full stops, okay? So there are only about 1,500 tigers in India. What else do we have? We find giant pandas in China. I can say, we only find giant pandas in China. Okay? So we only find giant pandas in China. Number 6, pandas eat the leaves of one plant. I can say pandas only eat the leaves of one plant. Right, you guys? What else do we have? 7, the temperature is 2 degrees Celsius today. I'll probably say the temperature is only, and the reason I added is first is because it's verb to be, and we always use only and also after verb to be. Okay, you guys? So the temperature is only 2. I'm not gonna be able to write Celsius, so let's just write it as 2, as only 2 degrees. I'll probably just write degrees. Degrees Celsius. Here you guys go. The temperature is only 2 degrees Celsius today. Okay? And finally we have, there are a few rivers in Australia. So we can say there are only a few rivers in Australia. Okay, you guys? So simple stuff. We only we only added only. Okay, and now that we know how we can use it, it should, be a little bit, you guys should be a lot more comfortable now adding only to sentences. Okay? So what do we have here? Let's move on. So we have exercise C. Read each sentence, then complete the second sentence with the word also. So now we're going to be adding also. So I can't really add it here, so we're going to have to do it orally, okay? So here we go. Some snakes are dangerous. Some insects are also dangerous. Remember, we're using the same style that we use for only. We use the same style for also as well, okay? So, number 2, it rains in autumn, right? I can probably say it also rains in winter. I'm not wrong, okay? Number 3, we studied animals. We also studied insects. Number 4, let me get that out of the way. The climate is hot. It is also humid, right? Number 5, the animals live in Europe. They also live in China. Okay, so they, and then we have also, and after that, right after that, we have the normal verbs or other verbs in the sentence. So always use also or only before the main verbs in the sentence. And I'm not talking about verb to be. Number 6, it was cloudy yesterday. It was also cold. Okay? Number 7, giraffes have long legs. They also have long necks. Obviously we have as a verb, so we use also before that. Number 8, the paws of polar bears help them walk on snow. They also help them swim. Okay, you guys? Alright, I hope you're able to understand that and understand the conclusion of how to use only and also in sentences. Okay? Now, let's move on. Here we have choosing. So exercise D, look at the information about African elephants and Asian elephants. Then circle the correct word or phrase in each sentence. Okay, so let me actually open this for you guys. So we have there is or are two main kinds of elephant, excuse me. So there are two main kinds of elephant. Number 2, African elephants live or are in tropical climates in Central and or are living South Africa, and living South Africa. I'm not too sure if the book made a mistake here or not. So African elephants live in tropical climates in Central and living South Africa. Okay? Then we have 3, Asian elephants live also or also live. You guys should be able to answer this. This one's really simple. Also live in tropical climates in India and Southeast Asia. Okay? So Asian elephants also live, because also always comes before any other verb that's not verb to be. Okay? Number 4, both kinds of elephants are simply gray. I don't need to get specific, gray color. No. So both kinds of elephants are gray. Number 5, there only are or are only about 10,000 African elephants. You guys should also be able to do this. Obviously, are only. And the reason for that is because verb to be always comes before only and also. And 30,000 of Asian elephants, or simply just Asian elephants. What am I going to say? I don't need to say of here, so I'll just add Asian elephants. Okay? Then we have number 7. African elephants are more heavy or heavier. What do you guys think? Obviously, it's not really a tall or a long adjective, so heavier. I don't say more heavy, I just say heavier than Asian elephants. They are also more tall or taller, you guys. That's correct. We're going to say taller, right? Comparative adjectives. 9. Asian elephants have the smoother skins, or just simply smoother. No need for the. So smoother skins. 10. Their ears are small than what? There's nothing else. So smaller, simply smaller. All right. So pretty simple stuff, you guys. Now let's move on. What else do we have here? Okay. So this is going to be pretty interesting, and this is kind of an exercise that I want you guys to do on your own. I'm going to tell you what to do, maybe give a little bit of examples, but you guys should be able to write this one down as a conclusion to this lesson. So you're going to write a comparison of two kinds of bears, right? So here we have in front of us two kinds of bears, the polar bear and a brown bear. Okay, and I want you guys to write a comparison. How are you going to do that? First, I want you to study this table right here and get all the information you need from this table. You know, write it down, make some extra notes if you want, your choice, right? And try and find similarities and differences like here. So for example, climate, you know, polar bear lives in a polar environment while the brown bear lives in the continental one. You guys remember polar and continental? And then you write your text. You can also use some patterns from this exercise right here, the one that we just said. So African elephants live in tropical climates in Central and South Africa. You guys can use things of the the same pattern, right? But try to switch it up. Don't use the same pattern for everything that you write down, right? So this essay is about polar bears and brown bears. Okay, so for example, location: Russia, Canada, Greenland. Russia, Canada, the USA. We have two similarities, one difference, right? Here we have one difference. Number, also a difference. Color, also a difference. You'll see a lot of differences and not that many similarities, so it's a matter of just balancing it out. Okay, you guys? I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.